Good morning, my name is Janelle and I'm representing Dorsey High School, and the debate topic is the public responses that are critical of the grand jury decision not to indict Darren Wilson are effective, justified, and or productive. And okay, past situations relating to civil rights and racial segregation caused an uproar in public responses across the country. Civil rights leader Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. led African American citizens through marches with beliefs that there will be a better tomorrow. Dr. King had a dream that one day this nation will rise as one. Public responses were justified and effective, not overnight, not the next week, maybe not even the next year. Change comes about maybe not socially, but politically. Blacks were sworn to be treated equally within the hands of the state. Unfortunately, racism has risen again in the hands of justice. Hitting between the lines of the government, racism is a big problem. Unarmed Rodney King, beaten by police in 1991. Unarmed Trayvon Martin, killed by George Zimmerman, a Neighborhood Watch volunteer in 2012. Unarmed Eric Garner, strangled by police in 2014. And finally, unarmed Mike Brown, shot and killed by police officer Darren Wilson. The question rises, when will these tragedies stop? Protesters from around the world stand up for the rights for people of color. Enough time has passed. It won't happen tomorrow nor next week, but now.
No, you stay. All right. At this time, the student from UCLA Community School, you can ask Janelle questions. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Sam, and I'm for UCLA Community High School. Okay, so we would like to ask you exactly, like, what exactly do you stand for? Like, what is your statement in all of this?
What does that mean?
What's your position?
As far as what? I feel that the public responses are effective, even though they may be, a bit violent or so. But I feel that everybody is standing for change, everybody wants change, and everybody's ready for change. And there's no time to waste anymore. There's no time to wait. It needs to happen now. All lives matter, including Black lives. Oh God,
well,
so
if all lives matter, how do you feel about the casualties that happen?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
If all lives matter, how about the casualties? Like, there are a lot of racism. There is a lot of racism going on, but what about the casualties? Like the cops that agree with you, but are also just doing their job in some regards. Like the people, because a lot of cops get a bad reputation all over instead of just by in some cops. Like, not all cops are all racist, but all of them get the bad name. What about them?
I feel like some people, let me see, how can I say it? I don't want to say go against the rules, but do what they think is right, besides just doing their job, because making a change, it only starts with one person. So if one police officer chooses to do the right thing and stand up for the right things, then maybe all will follow in order.
Marlene, do we want to cut off Cross, or do we want to ask another Cross question?
Your student may yield her time, and anytime she wants to, she can yield her time. If she does not want to use 3 minutes, It's okay.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you.
So she's going to yield her time.
Okay.
That's great. Thank you. And now it's time for a UCLA Community High School student to speak, and we will be listening. Are you going to do the cross-examination? You'll ask her question.
4 minutes.
Oh, can I write them down?
Yes, you can.
Marquise on the cross-exam.
Okay. Okay. Pardon me? Yes, we could turn it higher. We'll try.
That was so scary.
Okay, we need to start.
All right, we're ready over here.
Oh.
All right, we're ready.
We're ready.
My name is Samantha Gotzi, and I represent UCLA Community School. I'm severely outraged by the predicaments that have occurred in Ferguson and the police brutality that has been a regularity. I feel that there is a more power-hungry surge in the police force around the world. However, I do feel that there are other means of voicing your opinions than destroying buildings and blocking traffic. In my hometown of the Bay Area, in Oakland, rioters blocked traffic on freeways to get their voice heard by their neighboring cities such as San Francisco and Berkeley, preventing parents from being able to pick their children up from school and holding them in another form of institutionalized oppression that is a requirement for our society today. Burning down buildings and showing up the police has helped nothing. The offending officer in Ferguson still ended up not being convicted of anything, and nothing has improved in the racial stereotype areas. Mike Brown was also shown no real justice. Martin Luther King Jr. did not use violence to get his voice heard, and so many people heard his non-violence over everyone else because his actions, unlike everyone else, was trying to prove the point that African Americans do not deserve the names us white people at the time had wrongly labeled them at the time. This is an instance where I believe that the same thing must be applied here, yet no real leader has shown people otherwise. Violence only shows the audience watching the news that police has every reason to be brutal because of those who are rioting and such are acting in such behavior that only proves the point of the police. This also means that you have given them more of a reason to attack African American culture and anyone in general in those riots. Even worse, close to killing anyone who may even say Mike Brown's name because they will also be paranoid for their own safety. There could be several different scenarios that can play out, and you haven't even thought of possible consequences behind those actions, and violence leads to more violence and hatred for one another. It was caused for the girls to be blown up in the 1963 African American people would fight against the racism of white American with violence, and the idiotic white people in this small town thought it would be great to kill one of them got the most positive attention. I'll be honest, however, I'm having an internal debate with myself as I preach nonviolence to you. Look at the violence that has happened all around the world, financial crisis is also happening. People in Southern and Central America fighting for the rights, even as poor citizens being heard and fighting for what they believe in. And as honorable as I find that, I know a lot of people are either too lazy or too unwilling to risk their lives to fight for a cause of any kind, especially if it's concerning them. First they came from the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me, by Martin Niemöller. I read this quote, and it stands true for anyone in this situation. If you are not there to help everyone else, no one else will want to help you in the end, or be able to when the monsters finally come for you, which brings me to my conclusion. I understand and I empathize with those who feel their voices have not been heard, and justice has yet to be served. But what good does it do to destroy not only my hard work but yours as well, throwing a temper tantrum like a young child, or acting like adults or acting like the adults we claim to be when we must act like it and respectfully, peacefully go to the people. Oh, okay.
Okay, so this is cross-examination. Janelle will ask questions. 3 minutes.
Okay. My question is, what other ways do you think that people can get their word out to society without violence and actually have them listen?
Well, there was actually several case instances where in Oakland, I think she was a secretary, for the board, for the supervisor, but they had actually went out and camped in front of governmental buildings such as like City Hall to get their point across during other protests. Like for Oscar Grant, they would sit there and they would camp literally with tents in front of City Hall, and that eventually got their attention and peacefully got what they wanted.
Okay, and how do you think were you not done? I'm sorry.
No, it's your cross.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no, go ahead.
How do you think nonviolence will better us as a unit?
Well, it'll better us in the fact that we say that we are not, we are human beings, and fighting amongst ourselves proves that not only do we have a lot of resentment and hatred towards one another, which does not better us as humankind, it also proves that we are no better than the animals we see in the zoo, in my opinion.
Okay, that's it. Carter, I don't have
Are you done with
Yeah.
the cross-examination?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Can I
So
tell her
now
now?
you may go,
Oh.
and Pierce is up. Okay. Okay, Pierce is here. Okay. So we are on to our next speaker. And I think we want to, yes.
All right, we're ready, Marlene.
Okay, we are ready, and Pierce has 4 minutes.
Hi, my name is Pierce. I am representing Dorsey High School, and I wanted to touch up on the argument that public responses have made people across the country and around the world aware of the injustice. There have been protests literally around the world for the injustice of the Michael Brown case. Protests continue across the country from shopping malls to football stadiums, and it's also extended so far as London, the UK, and also Russia. Also, there have been protests coming from Boston, New York, Dallas, Atlanta, and other cities. Not all protests were peaceful, but riots had also broke out in Oakland, California. And also in Chicago, a dozen protesters had gathered on a Tuesday morning on a downtown street corner ahead from other protests at City Hall, according to WGNTV.com. Basically, in short notice, that basically the rest of the world are aware of the injustice around the Michael Brown case, since Officer Darren Wilson was not indicted for the killing of an unarmed black man.
Oh, is that it?
Yes.
Oh.
Here's what Reverend Al Sharpton.
All right, thank you. That was very good. I'm glad you mentioned how the result created awareness across the world, but how is that effective? Like awareness do?
Well, of how it was effective, because not only were there were also nonviolent protests, of course, such as of course marching, but there was also a couple of violent protests, like such as blocking traffic in LA, or basically police raids around certain protests that would be labeled as violent if too many people come together as one unit. Also, around the world, we don't see that there are also people being wrongfully killed all around the world, and it's not being worldly renounced. So basically that's my point on the situation.
Do you see another way of responding to the result instead of riots and protests?
Yes, I actually do. Instead of protesting, instead of protesting violence, we should also demonstrate it among social media, like get other reporters on the situation, and also some celebrities to actually support us on the situation, because it's a very serious case, and people are not seeing that. They only see, oh, a white man shoots an unarmed black man. That will probably trend for a couple of months, if very lucky, a few months. But we should get everybody involved, not only people off camera, but also on camera as well.
Okay. One last question. So, how would you respond? How would you respond to protesters being exposed to tear gas, police shooting them at protests and rallies, and also just all the damages that they're making? Like, how would you respond to it? How do you see it?
And how do I see it? I see it as also it's actually completely outrageous of what the police are doing if too many people assemble as one group. Because if too many people assemble as one group and it's a peaceful protest, then they might not only get the police force involved, but they might also get the sheriffs, the National Guard, and everybody basically available on the government branch. And I do understand that that law enforcement are trying to do their job, but they shouldn't take it so far as exposing tear gas if the protests are actually peaceful and there are no casualties involved.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll yield my time now.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, it's your turn to give a speech, or a UCLA Community High School student's turn, and Pierce is going to do the cross-examination.
All right. Hi, I'm Charles from UCLA Community School, and I would like to start by addressing one of the main messages of the Ferguson protesters, and that message is the phrase "Black Lives Matter." Many have argued that people should be arguing that all lives matter. I would like to know what the opposition thinks about this. Some at my school have asked why many protesters say Black Lives Matter. I would ask, how would the opposition respond to those who would say, don't all lives matter? Are you saying black lives are more important than other lives? In the same way, a question I have is also about street protests and riots. Are these forms really the most productive and effective? Or do these forms of protest actually do more to divide people? Doesn't protest hurt people even more? Instead, I would advocate that there are different ways to spread the news, and one is by educating. People study failures and successes from the past to learn from those experiences and to try to avoid making the same mistakes. Instead of focusing to make the riots and protests a key event of 2014 and 2015, I think it will be a lot more effective if the result of the grand jury became a key event of the United States history that is taught in all classrooms nationwide. For that to happen, our schools must teach our future kids about reality. The reality of how being a black or Latino or gay or a woman or working class person may actually put you into a disadvantage in our society. Michael Brown's shooting and the result of the grand jury is a perfect example, but people need to be educated through their textbooks about these issues. Recently, a little over a month ago, 3 social studies teachers at Howard Middle School of Washington, D.C. were fired for teaching more black history that was out of the curriculum. This is wrong. My point is that the educational system should be changed and instead insert more black history into class curriculums. But there is work to be done in this area. There are conservative school districts that are trying to block this kind of education. For an example, the Texas School Board banned history textbooks such as Out of Many, A History of the American People, because of the, quote, unwanted fundamental conflicts that were detailed in the textbook. Daniel Citrom, co-author of the textbook, says, they went an American history that ignores or marginalizes African Americans, women, Latinos, immigrants, and popular culture. Rather than genuinely engaging the fundamental conflicts that have shaped our past, they prefer a celebratory history that denies those fundamental conflicts. This means leaving out important history of people that unfairly suffered in our country. It means leaving out the racial and cultural conflicts of students' 300 issue that people should be fighting for. Access to curriculum that talks about how marginalized groups have truly been treated throughout history, so that people will be educated and try to prevent similar events from happening. Another example, do schools teach about the horrid past of lynching in this country? Even up until now, I didn't know that all the anti-lynching bills that were proposed were defeated by Southern senators, since they were in favor of lynching. It wasn't until 2005 that senators apologized for the history of lynching and the killing of more than 4,700 people from 1882 and 1968. Why aren't incidents like these in textbooks? Students should know about important events such as this, because it shows that the government admitted of having a messed up system of racist senators. If more people knew the true history of this country, we wouldn't see the problems we see today. In my opinion, the endurance and the struggles that the African American generation have gone through are not taught in schools. If they were taught more often, especially in elementary school, then we would see less racism in our country. Michael Brown's killings and the unjustified non-indictment of Darren Wilson is also a part of recent history that shows the preference of white people in our country. But I believe this only happens because white history and white people are taught as the only important people in our history. If people of color were put at the center of history books, we would see less racism in this country. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, you timed it perfectly. Yeah, timed it perfectly.
Alrighty, first question. Falling back on the recency of the 3 Harvard professors that were fired on teaching Black history out of the curriculum, what is your response? And
could you repeat it? It's like connections. Like, could you repeat it? What you just asked?
All right. Okay, falling back on the 3 Harvard professors being let go because Black history was not part of the curriculum at Harvard. What is your response on not installing Black history within such prestigious schools such as Harvard or Yale?
Wait, sorry,
The question is, what is your response to the fact that Black history has not been taught at elite schools such as Harvard and Yale?
Oh, that's my point. I'm saying the educational system should be changed. Like, it's not fair how a lot of the history that's really important, it's not really taught. It's considered not important to our classes, and so they're not taught. So I'm saying the educational system should be changed, so that if people are more aware of what happened in our past, then they'll be aware of what might happen today because of the mistakes that we have made from the past.
You have another question? Okay. He's going to yield his time. Oh, I'm sorry. Yield his time. If you don't mind, he.
Okay.
I'm sorry, he just have other questions, right?
Okay. Janelle.
How can being educated change the outlook
Okay. Being educated on police brutality.
Excuse me? Wait, oh, God.
Is your question, how do you educate people about police brutality?
Can be educated change the outlook on police brutality?
Sorry, the connection is a little bad.
Okay, he's saying, how will being educated change the outlook on police brutality?
Okay, how will being educated change the outlook on police brutality?
Well, I mean, in my opinion, I think if everyone is aware of the reason why police they take advantage of their power and start abusing people, then I think that all these people who have a general idea of what's going on, I think they'll have a better chance of actually reasoning out why it's wrong, and it's a better chance to fight it out instead of just trying to fight them back physically, because they're armed and they have the authority to use their guns and harm us. Yeah.
And that's time. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you.
So at this point,
Take my hand.
Okay, so, actually, Janelle and Pierce are going to also handle those rebuttal speeches. So you'll see them up here, but we know negative goes first. Okay, and we're going to start rebuttals. You have 3 minutes. You have 3 minutes.
Oh,
Who's starting with one?
if we start.
Oh, but I don't.
3 minutes?
No, this is like half time. You go first.
You're first.
Should I just read my thing?
Yeah, so introduce yourself.
Okay.
Who are you?
Okay. My name is Itzel Santiago, and I represent UCLA Community School. The public responses to the jury's decision are not productive or effective. I understand that they're trying to achieve justice, but at what cost? All of these riots and protests have just caused community damage. They're proving that all these stereotypes towards them are right, and so far there has been no change in the jury's decision, so their responses have not been effective. They're trying to have justice, but what type of justice? What they're doing is coming off as animals that don't know how to behave, wrecking business. All of these wreck are just causing fear to the bystanding public. These responses have given the town a bad image, especially since most of these news reporters have just showed the protesters breaking into businesses. Many local businesses have been vandalized, and I believe that this has caused people to be more prejudiced towards the black community. We live in a world where we hear stereotypes on a daily basis, and everyone who watched the news has definitely labeled that community to be full of criminals. I know that the community wants to express their feelings towards the grand jury's decision, but wrecking the community is not the way to express their emotions. They could have resorted to peaceful protests instead, just like many great activists have done.
Oh. Okay. I believe that nonviolence is a great form of protest for an incident.
Let's pause this. Let's pause.
Oh, pause.
Hello. Thank you. Now Janelle is going to give her rebuttals. Thank you. Here she is. Okay.
Okay. I believe that nonviolence is a great form of protest for an incident that only happened one time or for a small time frame. Racism has occurred for many, many years, and these people are angry, and there's no time to waste. I agree that nonviolence is effective to a certain extent. Anger from the black race is the cause of these violent attacks. Oh, and for the question, why do we say Black Lives Matter? Truly, all lives matter. Black lives giving less value. Certain races act as if the presence of blacks are just a bother. The way life works is this. If me, Janelle Ciego, a future Harvard graduate, applied for a job against a white Harvard graduate, who do you think would get the job? People are losing their value. Metaphorically, shiny shoes are becoming dull.
Okay, next.
Awesome. Alright, then. So you're gonna be my partner or whatever thing?
Yes, yes. Your speech and you'll listen to it. Okay.
Oh shit, I think I put the camera. Hi, I'm Eric, and I'm from UCLA Community School. And alright then. What does it really mean to be American? Does it mean that you grill burgers under the starry night lit by fireworks, or does it mean being an average Joe? To be American is just a catch for people to fall under the system and let themselves be labeled. That's exactly what we're letting them for us to be labeled as. We are labeled as savages who just doesn't know what to do, and that's what we're proving them by doing riots and looting around. And taking to the streets and destroying them solves nothing, only worsens the situation. Sure, it might get the voices of the unheard be heard, however, it won't get the reaction it's supposed to get. I say we take to a more peaceful solution. For example, MLK, he used kids. He used kids once in his civil rights movement. It's called the Birmingham campaign, and although the police use dogs against the kids and they use fire hoses against them, they still managed to pull through and not do anything violently. And look what happened. He brought out the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which indeed helped out a lot through of the people of color. And I say we need to come together as people, as humans, and work together. I'm also a person of color. I'm brown, and I have felt what other people have felt. I know what it feels like to have other people look at you as though you're a monster. I know how it feels like to be oppressed. I know how it feels like to be treated wrong, you know. And I have all this anger inside of me, you know. I could I understand why people want to go out and protest and just destroy everything, but that's not the right solution. All you do is self-hurt yourself, and all you do is damage where you live. You get nothing out of it. And I say that you must take it to a more educational place where you teach yourself and you teach other people what's going on, and then when you teach people, they become aware of their own power. For example, when the police tries to arrest you, you must know your rights and must know what they're doing in order for them to do that. You can't just let them. We need to educate. I don't want to divide the people. I want to unify them. And by unifying them, we need to educate them. Thank you.
In response to those statements,
Twice as loud.
all right. Hello, Ms. Pierce, represent Dorsey High School. In response to your rebuttal speech, sums up on the simple fact that all lives matter. But does it really matter that such as black and people of color have been beaten down and torn down for the last 400 years because Caucasians and whites automatically thought that they were superior in this world? And we say all lives matter. I tend to not believe that. And the only reason we use a form of protest through violence is to get a message out and to be heard. Because if we did peaceful protests, then basically most of the jury system, mostly whites, wouldn't be able to hear our voice in accordance with the else in the world. Knowing the rights cause the police to get angered. Being educated what our own rights are used against us. Basically saying you have the right to remain silent. To touch up on that. Also having the warrant to search for an arrest. Say you're getting stopped over, say you're getting pulled over, and cops ask you, do you know the reason why you got pulled over? also solving, and also in response to that, it is what is called DWB, driving while black. Just because you have a certain luxurious car and the fact that you're black, whether legal or illegal, it is your right to ask them that question. Also, peaceful protest is what is basically what led to MLK's assassination, because the whites in the South thought that black people were nothing but animals. Hence, the 3/5 Compromise, or the Emancipation Proclamation, that is said to have freed blacks, but not really, because we are slaves within our own minds.
20 seconds.
So, well, does it come to this question? Do all lives matter? Or do all lives but colors matter?
Okay, and thank you. And that is the end of the debate. I think all the debaters come around, Janelle. Thank you very much, UCLA Community School students, high school students, Mr. Torrado. Thank you.
Like 4 debaters. We're down to 2.
You guys
Thank you.
Well, we'd like to make we'd like to make one more statement. I would like to make a point from my colleagues and I, that half of us, if not all of us, actually agree with protesting in the streets, seeing as everything else we have done hasn't worked. We're only playing a role in this debate, trying to show people that racism really does exist for the purpose of holding up a mirror to society so that we can change their racist beliefs. Just to reiterate, my team and I fully support the protests in Bergen, are fully against police brutality.
Yay! Good job, guys. Hey, nice.
Right. Thank you for taking on the hard job of debating the negative side. We appreciate it.
Love you. Well, that was fast.
All right, thanks, Marlene.
Thanks.